I feel like the Lord has recently showed me that there's even been places where there have been like poverty mindset that I've carried. There's not enough time. There's never enough time to get it done. And to your point, it's like a glorified feeling of hustle. Like, look how busy I am and look what we're doing. And I feel like the Lord in his economy is like, this is so flipped upside down. Like you've got to learn to surrender and find in that place of surrender is the abundance for what you need. And so as much as as long as we're continuing to practice, I feel like I'm continuing to learn this as well. And I know you see that in me. And I pray that our kids see that in me. And I pray that our friendships see that in me, that it's not just always going 100 miles an hour, but it's learning that this is not an empty space, but this is an intentional pause. And this is a sacred space. And the goodness cannot come into our lives. The Father cannot speak when we are in constant, relentless motion.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Megann Marcellino, and I want to welcome you back to Generations at the Table. Thank you so much for pulling up a seat with me today. Today, I am honored and really excited to have our friends Michael and Selah Hirsch with us today, and they are going to talk to you and to me about the gift that they have received and about the invitation that the Father has to you through rest, through Sabbath. And this is not through obligation, but an opportunity to pause, to press pause, if you will, and take a moment to get to know the Lord better and to get to know your family better and the blessing of Sabbath and the rest of Sabbath. What I want you to walk away with today is that God has invited you to his table and the invitation is standing. Will you say yes? They have written an amazing book called Pressing Pause, and you can order it today on Amazon or at startsabbath.com. But it's an incredible resource. And what it is it's their testimony. And that's what they're going to share with us today is their testimony of what happened to them, what they witnessed in their life, and the blessings unlocked on their family when they said yes to the invitation of the Father. So, Michael, Selah, thank you so much for saying yes today.
Thank you so much for having us. We were so honored to be here.
So we've been friends. We were trying to remember how long we've been friends now, and we're measuring it off kids. We're thinking it's around like 6 years.
Give or take a few.
A few children, a few years, we don't know. And so it's been about 6 years we've worked together in the ministry and just our heart for kingdom expansion. And through that, the Lord has just been birthing something new in you guys, and I'm really excited for you to share about it. So I don't know who wants to start, but I want to hear about kind of like what the Lord started speaking to you about Sabbath and what it's done in your life.
I love that. Well, before we jump into the story, I just want to take a moment and I want to honor you and your family and the ministry, Megann, because you were a part of the Lord calling us to the table. In fact, I'll never forget when you first told me, you said, Selah, like, come put your feet under the table. And I remember at the moment, those words didn't totally make sense, maybe in my head, but they resonated within my heart and they absolutely resounded in my spirit. And I did. I came, we put our feet under the table. We gathered with you for the feast. And I truly just wept the whole time. I thought there is something here that is missing. And I know, Michael, you felt the same way too. You were like, there is something here that is missing. We love the Lord and we're pursuing him as a family, but there's this missing piece. And I believe that moment was so pivotal. The Lord was calling us after him, getting our attention, and you were what we call a divine breadcrumb. Sometimes some of us need a little bit more of a leading, if you're a snacker like me, maybe it's the breadcrumb, but it was saying, hey, come to our table, experience the heart of the Father through relationship in the way of sacred rest. And that was the beginning of us starting to understand what is Sabbath and what is sacred rest. And so I want to thank you and your family and the ministry so much for leading us in this way. And I want to thank Michael so much because if it wasn't for you, and why don't you tell our story a little bit, because you were the one who caught even further, I think, a taste of what that looked like and said, it's time for us to bring this to our family.
It definitely was. So it was a series of events. And so Selah mentioned the spiritual breadcrumb really started here with this ministry. And then a little over 3 years ago, I unexpectedly received an invitation to go to Israel.
Yes.
All expenses paid trip. And that initial communication, I actually almost deleted it.
It felt too good to be true.
It felt like internet fortune is too good.
I remember this invitation because Selah actually called me, and I don't know if you remember this or not, and you asked me about the ministry, like if I knew anything about
it. Is this legit.
I was like, yeah, solid.
Before Michael jumps on a plane and goes all the way across the world.
But how amazing.
And little did we know, it was truly the right gift at the right time.
It sure was. And really at that time, I'm leading a nonprofit that's reaching youth around the world and globally. Selah's leading her brand agency business, as you know. 4 kiddos, 2 puppies, like just
and a partridge in a pear tree.
Living highly caffeinated and highly passionate, followers of Jesus at the time, and that's kind of where we were. And then we received the invitation, and we said yes. Mm-hmm. And so I'll never forget preparing for the trip to Israel. And we had the initial itinerary, and I'm highlighting the places that I'm really looking forward to. This is my first time to Israel. And so, I'm thinking about being out on the Sea of Galilee. I'm thinking of the Garden of Gethsemane, all the archaeological sites that we're going to
the highlights.
The highlights. Yeah. And there was a Sabbath Shabbat dinner on the itinerary that I just completely looked over. Yeah. And so it was really that Friday night that I'll never forget. It was our first, there were 25 of us that were traveling. It was our first night in Jerusalem. And I remember we gathered outside of our hotel with our leader, and he began sharing about Shabbat and about Sabbath. And I heard it, and it was just God's timing.
Yeah.
And I heard it in a way that I've never heard it before. Mm-hmm. And even just hearing about just the placement of Sabbath in God's top 10, being ranked number 4, and remembering the Sabbath. And then I heard a quote, a well-known quote, that said that, it was the Jews who kept Shabbat, but it was Shabbat that kept the Jews.
Yes.
And as we began walking to the house that was hosting us, you could hear, just the cries of prayer coming from the Western Wall. And that just sets the moment and the tone. And then stepping into the house, and I'll never forget just the experience of the presence of God. It's as if we lost, and we talk about a lot of this in the book about time, but it's as if we lost track of time in that moment. And so I called Selah, fast forwarding a couple days later after I had a chance to really unpack that experience. And I said, Selah, I'm going to be home in a couple of days.
Get ready.
I can hear the tone in your mind. It was like going higher and higher and higher.
And it was on a Tuesday night. And I said, there's going to be a few packages arriving at our doorstep. And we're going to have our first Shabbat as a family this coming Friday. And you said?
And I said, my infamous line to Michael is, all right, just keep it simple. And we all know he did not at all. So that was our start, which was 3 years ago. And it's pretty amazing how our first time around the table, we didn't know exactly what we were doing. The kids were like, what is going on? I'm looking, they're all like, when do we eat? And what's Dad saying these prayers? I'm like, I don't know. We're all like starving. And we obviously made our way through it. And I'll tell you, the second time we had Shabbat too was I think just the resistance was so real. We didn't know how to stop. We didn't know how to press pause. I knew Michael had this fervor and this excitement. He experienced something. And I believe in the time around the family, but there was just this sacred presence we were still tapping into. And I remember the second time I was like, are we doing this? I think we even had like takeout fajitas because I burned dinner or something. And he's like, we're doing this. But I'll tell you, carving out that time, pressing pause, coming together time after time again has gone from resistance now to rhythm. And I'll tell you, it has absolutely radically revolutionized our marriage, the culture of our family, deepened our walk with the Lord, and to such a sweet place.
Yeah.
I just love hearing your testimony. I know we kind of passed forth just a few notes. And one of the things I was reading just this week, it was in Luke. And it was like the first chapter of Luke. And I had never really caught it before, but basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but Luke was like, many have written about Jesus. Many have written about their experience. Many have told you these stories, but I want to tell you my story. And it was like, Luke was like, I want to share what I saw. Like, it's just, he wanted to be heard and documented and recorded. And Luke is actually my favorite gospel. I don't know. I love the way he presents things, but I love hearing what Sabbath has done for you. I actually meant to look it up. I don't know how many times the Sabbath invitation is in the Bible, but it's like, this is your story, and it's through a modern lens and a framework. And I love your transparency, not only of the gift that it's been, but the challenge it is to keep it. Because as we all know, in the United States, I'm sure in other parts of the world too, Friday night is not for Shabbat. It is for football. It is for activities. It is for business dinners. It is for things. And like the call to rest, you have to say no to something else before you can say yes to him. And so I share a little bit more. So you have your first one. You don't keep it simple.
3.5 hours later, and we're now getting to the
Dinner's
meal.
burned on the second one.
Dinner burned on the second one. I think I might have spaced a little by the third. But I'll tell you, we kept showing up. I think that's where I'm grateful. Michael has this steadfast perseverance. I think it's another one of like the spiritual gifts. And I lean to the practical. And so you meld that together. And we didn't have anyone else walking with us in that moment. So we just kept showing up, and we kept showing up in being steadfast. And I think we kept showing up and sometimes keeping it simple, and I went on, Michael, what would you say? Maybe it was just a handful of months at most, just kept showing up. Maybe it was a little later on a Friday because we had something going on. It was learning to say no to a few things and rearranging some of our calendar to then create space for this. And we realized the resistance is what is so real because of the way we live our lives and because of our culture. But the more we pushed into it, it was like a sweetness was on the other side. And I can only describe it as like we would lean in and we would have this moment. And this moment would look like real and practical and messy and beautiful all at the same time. That's the best way I can describe it. And for anyone who's listening to this, that's what you should expect, because it's where our humanity collides with the eternity of the Father's heart. And in fact, we call it, when we prepare and start on our Fridays, we call it like signaling Sabbath, where like our flesh needs to begin to de-escalate a bit, and especially mine. yours tends to come down a little faster, but I've got emails buzzing, and I'm trying to think of what we're doing for dinner, and I tend to overload our schedules a bit. But I have to kind of take a moment to realize I have to carve a line in the sand. And so back to your question, like, where do we go from there? We begin to realize that the more we carve this line, it's like running your finger through the sand the first time. It goes maybe like, half an inch deep. And then you can dig a little deeper and dig a little deeper. And the line started to become apparent to where this isn't, are we doing this? But it's like, hey, it's time for this. And our kids would start to say, hey, it's Friday, Shabbat Shalom. And it was like we were all realizing, if we can make it here in tears, in joy, in pajama bottoms, with guests around the table, I mean, that's our world, and it still is, the Father will meet us. And I just feel like maybe it took us a handful of times of saying, you know what, it's worth something new. It's worth trying this new. It's worth coming back because we got a taste for it and we want a little bit more. And that's how we push past that rhythm, that resistance into rhythm. And I'll tell you, from that, it has marked us because all we want is more now.
It's amazing. So I'd love, Michael, can you share, and I have a couple other questions I know we talked about, but I would like for the listener who's like, I would want some practical steps, like tell me, do this, 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 and this. Like, I would love for you just to share a little bit about what Shabbat looks like at your home. Even what you have shared with Paul and I has inspired us, like just the blessings of the Father. Like, we had done it in certain ways, but not so intentional.
Yes.
And like, even just the other night when we got to share Shabbat with you guys in real life, this isn't real life, in real life, it was so beautiful watching you bless your wife and bless your children. And it was just so full of love, authenticity. It was inspirational. I saw them connect with you, like kids connect with their dad, and only the ways dads have like a unique, you carry a mantle to bless your children in like a unique way. And I think it was tangible. It was so beautiful. And so I would love for you to share just a little bit about what the Lord has laid on your heart and like that looks like.
What does it look like for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do write one of our chapters is called The Simple Steps to Sabbath. And I'll touch on just a few of those. And something we like to talk about is that there is not one particular right way to do it. But what's most important, though, is that we really begin with posture, and it's posturing our hearts and thinking about relationship with the Father. And, when you think about it, when we talk about Sabbath, we love to go back to the beginning in Genesis 1 and 2. And Sabbath isn't referenced and said, but it's when God rested. And I think what's really beautiful about Genesis chapter 2 is, we hear about what God created, day 1 through day 6. And after he created and he innovated, he called it good or very good. But then in day 7, something changed and something was different. And he didn't call it good, but he called this is a holy time. And that Hebrew word is kodesh, meaning set apart. And so in the beginning, as someone is listening right now or watching and this is connecting with their hearts and thinking about, well, where do I start? I think that's where we start.
Yeah.
We start at that particular place. And remember that God designated a time that he set it apart for you to pause, for you to take a break, for you to begin to experience the goodness of God. And at the same time, you get an opportunity to be able to really activate your purpose, to be really reminded who he created you to be.
Yeah.
So when we start our Sabbath on Friday, usually for me, it begins in the middle of the afternoon. And we call it kind of a Sabbath state of mind. And whereas we're getting ready to start our Sabbath dinner and we have a lot happening and a lot of energy around the house. It's on level 10.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Always.
But I'll do my best just to set aside a few minutes. And I may open my Bible and I may read Isaiah 58. And Isaiah 58 really talks about, making Sabbath a delight.
Yes.
Or it may just be me, just spending a couple of moments, just getting myself prepared like anyone would. A business leader would spend time preparing notes, for a meeting. An athlete's going to spend time preparing for, an event. The same thing applies. And just again, to begin to see the mindset shift into what we're getting ready to experience. It's this gift. It's this time that he set apart as holy. And then who knows what God is going to do that evening or carrying over into the next day. So it begins to build anticipation.
And I'll have to jump in here and say, even that 5 or 10 minutes you take, just to make it really practical for people, it really does transition your mindset. I see you sometimes step away, take your iPad, and it's true. I mean, it doesn't take long, but it's that intentionality. And I see you just take a moment. I think you're taking a moment to pray, seek the Father, think about what is it that you want to share that night. And it's like, I see the transition in you. And it's like, we don't need, a whole day to transition, but we need a few minutes to begin to create that space. And so I love that you set that up.
And then next, do something that's pretty bold. And it was challenging to do it in the beginning, is I pull out my smartphone and I actually turn it off. Remember the first time I turned off my phone, I think my hand was shaking. And I felt phantom.
You never turn your phone off, right?
And we're not saying you have to turn off your phone.
I tend to silence
mine. But maybe silence it and put it on notifications.
Is that why you took my phone and plugged it in for me the other night?
Well,
I'm going to put this across the room.
We're going to plug it in over here. Wait, my other arm.
But here's what's beautiful. What I'm indicating, I'm doing my best to, with all that's going on and the weeks that we're all like leading and doing ministry and leading our families and our marriages, it's indicating that we're setting apart this time. I'm setting apart this time because it's not about me. But this is about God. We don't call it me time, but we call it God time. Now, God, you have your way. And then from there, you mentioned a couple things that that you experience as being with our Sabbath. We like to light candles at ours. So we have borrowing from Jewish tradition and my time in Israel.
Yes.
So again, no right way, but there were parts of it that I really felt led to implement into our family experience. So we love to light there's something about lighting candles. Think about a birthday. Some people light birthday candles. It marks the moment.
Yeah.
Again, it sets it apart. And then from there, one of our favorite parts of Sabbath is the blessing, the opportunity to bless Selah, my wife, to be able to bless my kids. And what I'll do is I'll actually have a little journal that I keep. And throughout the week, I'm marking moments that I'm seeing I'm seeing the God work in their lives that I'm noticing that I then get to call out to them that evening.
Yes.
And then what I'm doing is I'm calling out their identity, their identity in Christ. And this isn't about performance. This isn't about behavior, but I'm looking for the good, God's goodness in their week. And I'm reminding them of who God has, Selah, created you to be as a woman of valor, who God has created my children to be as young men and women of Christ.
Yes.
And the best part is that we get to do that 52 times a year.
Yeah. I'll say on that note too, how instrumental it's been in our marriage. We started practicing Shabbat now, let's see, we've been married now 19 years. So maybe it's like around the 16-year mark or so. And I'll tell you, I feel like, as with anyone, when you're dedicated, into covenant relationship together, you're walking with the Lord, you're going to walk through seasons, where you're in step together and other seasons where you have to really work for marriage together, But I will say that the part of the blessing for me and with the kids has been our most special moment. Again, it takes 5 minutes for you to walk around the table and bless each of us and mark a moment of the week. But I'll tell you, in the few years we've practiced Shabbat, I feel like you've made more deposits in my heart than probably for the first decade, so to say. You get the point I'm making. Yeah. And Michael, not to go into too much detail, but you weren't raised by an earthly father who knew how to communicate love in that way. Yeah. You were raised not in a Christian household and with times where words were used more in harm than they were out of a place of just hope and love, And so I feel like you have been able to walk with the Father and shape your heart as a husband. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like being able to just receive that. And especially for our kids, they just look up and they make this eye contact. And we do it every single week. And it's different. It's just a moment. And I'll tell you, the way that they're able to look at Michael, I pray, Father, that it marks their heart, that they will look up in life, wherever they are, driving, so to say, in the car, or walking with friends through the mall, or, walking into job, and just be able to have a moment, I walk with the Father the way I've walked with my dad. And so our whole Sabbath time is again, maybe 15 minutes. I like putting markers on things because, it's what does it take to do this? But I think
otherwise I will get the look across the table and I realize it's time to wind it down.
No. And sometimes we worship a little longer, or sometimes the kids want to share something. But to your point, to your question, is what does this look like? And my point is that I think whether you're single, whether you're empty nesters, whether you're a family with, tiny kids around the table and high chairs, or bigger kids that are teenagers, all you need is to come and to take a few moments, walk through some of those few simple steps that I think shift our hearts to the place of rest and to receive the Father's love.
Yeah. And if you don't have a husband or a father in the home, this is something a mother can do. This is, this is not to be legalistic. And if you don't have anyone in your home, you can still take this opportunity for rest. I think that's what our heart for you today is, that you see the invitation and that this doesn't have to look any exact way. I pulled out a quote that I really liked. I think it was from chapter 5, and it said, the form matters less than the intention to connect with God. And that's what this is about. Let the Father speak his blessing over you. Ask the Lord, what did you see in me that was good? Bring that to heart and allow him to speak that to you. I was almost laughing because Paul took on this part of your Sabbath. He loves it, and he blesses me and he blesses the kids. And I can't remember what it was now, but a few weeks ago, we did something, just the two of us, that the family had wanted to do together. And Paul randomly mentions it at the Shabbat. He's like, my favorite part of the week with you was this. And the kids were like, what? And I was like, no, it wasn't. It was totally busted. That is hilarious. We do that.
Hey, I will say this last part, though, if this is resonating with your heart, I do love how Michael journals it. And we're actually working on a pressing pause journal because as we look through the lens of our family legacy, and obviously that is shaped through tangible and intangible items. I have told Michael, living in Oklahoma when there's tornado shelters and it's you can only put your essentials in a bag, I want those journaled notes because I want to just look back through the Friday nights, through the time at the table, and to hear what his heart was for us. And so we've actually said those are, you got your driver's license, you obviously got all the warm bodies in the house, but you got to grab that journal because that's a marked moment from the Father, through the Father in our family, to us that we want to savor. And I think that's something that as you're looking through a modern family legacy or even through a marriage, or like you said, for those who are in single in different seasons, they can journal those and be able to look back and see, look what the Lord has done.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so one other quote that I pulled out, you said, these pauses aren't empty spaces, they're sacred moments. And I think it's so important for everyone to see that the pause is not, it's because we're taught to hustle. Performance is glorified. The more you do, the busier your calendar is. That is what people seem to admire. And it's no, it's the pause that is sacred. And I think it's the yielding that is sacred. And it's really identity, identity based that we, when you become a Sabbath keeper, it changes something in your identity. Rabbi speaks on this about how when the calendar was stripped away and it was replaced with other calendars, it was an identity shift. And the enemy wanted them to see themselves in a different light. And so I think your calendar like really speaks to who you are and also what you prioritize. So I love.
Oh, that's like a gut punch.
I love that.
Look at my calendar sometimes, and you're like, "Ooh, like that is where my time is being spent," and it's so true.
Where you're investing.
I will say, for those of us who are a little hardwired for achievement, even borderline, maybe like workaholic vibes, I'll just say that it is a deepening place of surrender, a deepening place of surrender. And I'll tell you, I feel like the Lord has recently showed me that there's even been places where there have been like poverty mindset that I've carried. There's not enough time. There's never enough time to get it done. And to your point, it's like a glorified feeling of hustle. Like, look how busy I am and look what we're doing. And I feel like the Lord in his economy is like, this is so flipped upside down. Like you've got to learn to surrender and find in that place of surrender is the abundance for what you need. And so as much as as long as we're continuing to practice, I feel like I'm continuing to learn this as well. And I know you see that in me. And I pray that our kids see that in me. And I pray that our friendships see that in me, that it's not just always going 100 miles an hour, but it's learning that this is not an empty space, but this is an intentional pause. And this is a sacred space. And the goodness cannot come into our lives. The Father cannot speak when we are in constant, relentless motion.
Yeah.
So that's what sacred looks like.
Yeah, it's good.
So good. So good. Okay. One more quote. When you remove urgency and silence distractions, you create room. So good, you guys. So talk to us about that, about like silencing the distraction, because that's a choice.
It is a choice.
Removing the urgency is also a choice. And that's what creates room. Room for what?
Right. Well, that's the experience of God. And that's also to the wonder that you also get to anticipate of what is God going to do in this moment when you really hit pause. Because at the end of the day, I think some of us will wear our busyness as a badge of honor. And so making this choice to accept this gift and this invitation, it's very countercultural. And really at the end of the day, like you're truly putting like your trust in God, because you'll hear the expression like time is money, right? And so now what's going to happen with this time? Where does it go? But we believe that that's where God really steps in and he really blesses it. And so then that space, it starts with the pause. It does start with your calendar. It begins to then you start seeing like where it reflects like your priority. It starts building that anticipation. We call it the Sabbath soul cycle in chapter 5, and that then ultimately leads to the next rhythm. And this took time. We're still scratching the surface here. But then after you press pause, it's when we experience rest. We get to take that deep breath and we just get to wait. On God. And I believe that's really where then we get to experience the love of the Father.
Yes.
It was Jesus, before he experienced a miracle, before he called his followers, like it was Jesus that heard the voice of the Father say to him, "You are my beloved Son." Yes. And we want people to experience that, to hear that, to sense it, like you're my beloved Son, you're my beloved daughter, in whom I've chosen, and my favor rests. And that's before Jesus did a single thing.
Yeah.
So that second rhythm is the rest. And then we love the delight.
Yes.
And who knows? And that's just the wonder of God and how he's going to show up. And then when we set aside this sacred space, we love the last rhythm, and that's the activating purpose. And I hope people hear this part of it too, that while God loves rest, he also loves work.
Yes.
And he's called us to do significant things to advance his kingdom as individuals, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as moms and dads. And so he loves work. And so, when we wake up the next morning, that mortgage is still there. That diaper still needs to be changed. But there's a special opportunity for us to really experience a peace that transcends all understanding. And so for us, that's like the full experience. And then as we gain that understanding and wisdom, then that starts building the anticipation to get ready to press pause again.
Yes.
And keep that cycle going, as God demonstrated for us in the very beginning when he rested. And that number 7 is significant, which means complete.
See, I've always felt like when we sanctify the Sabbath and we rest on that day and we allow it, that it basically like gives you grace for the rest of the week at hand. And you get momentum and you have energy. And it's like, if you'll yield and surrender and trust God with that little bit of time, then he's going to trust you with the rest of the week. And it's like, you know how those weeks are when you're banging your head against the wall. It's like you try and you try and you try and the goals aren't met and things aren't moving. When you honor the Lord with your time, I believe he anoints the rest of the week in just a unique way. I know for me,
and he multiplies it.
Yes,
I mean, there's an overflow that we feel. I feel like we are,
yes,
and we now expect it. You know,
yes.
Think about it. It's all about the power of expectation. So I expect now to draw that line in the sand, to enter in, and the Father will always meet us there. He says, you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. So it's like, I'm showing up at this table. I know he's here. He has something for me. There's something that needs to come out of this that then I need to carry back to the world. And for years and years and years, we've said to our kids, shine like bright lights, go shine like bright lights. Every day before school, go shine like bright lights. And I never realized that part of the light would be at our Sabbath table, because at the end of the day, you're right. You know, rest it's not weakness, it's wisdom. How will we ever be able to own our kingdom assignment? How will we be able to carry out the light to others if we are not renewing it? And that's where it has been this exponential overflow. In fact, that's my favorite part of our Sabbath practice is the lingering afterwards and just being able to sit in that space, because it's like filling up that gas tank over and over again. And I know that there's going to be a demand on me. I know that the enemy is out to steal, kill, and destroy. I know that someone needs help. I know that I'm called to give and to, in all these places. And so I've got to be able to fill it up with him. Otherwise, at the end of the day, it's Selah coming at you hot, and nobody wants that.
I mean, we kind of do sometimes.
So I think most of the time it's a good
the rest.
Oh, is there anything else that you guys would want to share with anyone listening today? Just like brand new?
I would say I encourage you to start.
Yeah.
Just start this week. Don't feel like you got to figure it out. Don't feel like you even have to read the book just yet. Michael and I say all you've got to do is silence your phone, put your heart before the Lord. And we say, come to the table. That can look like breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It can look like any day or time of the week. It can look like with a spouse, with college friends. It can look like with your, with your family there. But if you just show up and you bring your present self, there's a depth that you will start to realize you were missing. In fact, we say that Sabbath was the gift we never knew we needed. And your divine breadcrumbs led us to just start. And here we are, one start, and don't expect it to be perfect. But just let it be messy and let it be human and let it be honest and ask the Lord, what do you have for me here? And then I encourage you, just do it again the next week and do it again the next week and expect it to be a little hard
clunky
and not natural. Yeah. Clunky is a great word. And embrace that. And that's where I just encourage you is allow the Lord to meet you where you are and ask him to fill you with what you need. What would you say?
No, it's great. You took the word messy. I think we actually had to edit parts of the book and how many times we use it because we just wanted to be honest.
Real.
Yeah.
That it's real. But it's really an opportunity for you to be able to come to the table using your line. We say that every Friday night and come to the table just as you are. It's not about performance. You don't have to put on a show. There are many Fridays where we came to the table with tears. There's also moments where we came, of course, on Fridays with joy. Yeah. Right? And
we've had a few
excitement
moments going on still at the table.
And in between.
It's real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my encouragement would be, again, like you said, to start. You can also take it with you wherever you are.
That's right.
So we brought Sabbath to Florida with us. So we got to experience. We brought it to Kona, Hawaii for the World Championship Ironman the day before my race. We all gathered around a table and we did Sabbath together. And we're just big believers that extraordinary things happen when you really dare to pause. And God is waiting. It's an invitation, I believe, that has been chasing us, whether we realize it or not, and want to encourage just our listeners and watchers just to accept the gift and wait to see what God does.
Absolutely. At startsabbath.com, people can get the book. And also, too, we have a phone number on there. You can text us pictures from your Sabbath table. In fact, we call it your Sabbath selfies. We're share your table with us. And so if you'd feel comfortable, do that. We'd love to see your table, just family style. Grab that picture there, and send it over to us and let us walk with you. In fact, we have a press pause challenge because we needed some help in the beginning in hindsight to say, how do we actually just just take a moment and press pause. And if we say we'll do it, but then what if we don't hold ourselves accountable? We can walk with you in that. And so we're put together the Press Pause Challenge for people who are just like us, who want a little bit more, but just want someone to walk with them. So whether we know you or not, like we know your family, we just encourage you to you're a part of this bigger family. You light your candles, we light our candles. This is what the body looks like across cultures and across continents. And that's what unites us. And so join the community, be a part of it, and let's press pause just 1 week at a time.
I love that. I love that. I love when they said that extraordinary things happen when we dare to press pause. So this is truly an invitation for you. I hope that you hear our hearts and our excitement. I'm sure you can sense our friendship, but it's something that we're passionate about. It's something that we want for you because we've seen the beauty in our family, in our families and in our lives and that identity. So startsabbath.com. Make sure you visit it. Join the challenge. Get the book. I know, Selah said you don't have to read the book. It's going to bless you. I mean, it has been beautiful. Even here, sitting here, I've been thinking, I was having this thought, like, I never really thought about this, but Paul and I were married on a Shabbat. We were married on a Friday night. And it was always like a rule, House of David, like we don't have Friday night weddings because we have service on Friday nights, but they made an exception for us to get married on a Friday night. And we played Fiddler on the Roof. Marty Getz sang at our wedding, and he sang the Sabbath blessing over us. Yeah. And like that, may you be like Ruth and like Esther, and may the whole like Fiddler on the Roof, like if you haven't seen it, gotta see it. But I mean, we've just been like inundated with the opportunity. And I don't think we've really fully realized it until for us, it's been a similar season since Joseph was born. Have we realized like the invitation of the personal table? And so, I had one scripture for you guys today. It's Psalms 34:8, and it says, drink deeply of the pleasures of this God. Experience for yourself the joyous mercies he gives to all who turn to hide themselves in him. Sabbath is a time where we turn, and we turn towards him, and we turn to face him. And sometimes we show up in joy. Sometimes we show up in anticipation. Sometimes we show up all alone. Sometimes we show up completely empty. But the discipline is the turning. And resting is trust. Resting is showing up and saying, there's nothing more I can do. I am going to yield. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to go with the flow this year. I'm going to receive what you have for me, and leaning into that he is enough. And you may think, well, I don't need that. Well, if God himself rested, I assure you that you do. And if we see that Yeshua practiced this, like we need this, is it an obligation? No. Is it an opportunity for blessing? Absolutely. So just try it. Press pause once this week. Try it and see what happens. But I would encourage you to get through that clunky, awkward, this feels weird stage. Find your rhythm, and you're going to find him in it, and you're going to find yourself and those blessings that he has for you. This is truly an opportunity. So I dare you to join the challenge. I dare you to press pause, go to startsabbath.com, join the movement, and just see what blessings unlock for your family. I believe it's going to be exponential. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us at the table. I look forward to being with you next week, same time, same place.